Signalgate didn't do it as far as we know, but Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth has finally earned a rare rebuke from the White House over his obsessive paranoia about leakers inside the Pentagon. The Washington Post is reporting that the White House intervention, which has not been previously reported on, came after a senior advisor to Pete Hegseth raised alarm to senior officials there about being targeted. U.S. officials and others familiar with the matter said. That advisor, Patrick Weaver, complained to White House officials this spring with concerns that he could soon be directed by Hegseth or another member of his team to submit to a polygraph test. The people familiar with the matter said the possibility angered Weaver, an immigration hawk seen within the administration as a loyal foot soldier to President Donald Trump, an associate of White House Deputy Chief of Staff Stephen Miller, officials said, speaking anonymously, out of concerns for reprisal from the Trump administration. The Pentagon declined to respond directly to the Washington Post reporting about the polygraph test. John and Ben are back. Ben Rhodes, we've both been in government and had clearances, and the polygraph is a tool within the government, but it is a tool sort of last resort used in specific and narrow national security ways, not to prevent leaks about what a hot mess Pete Hegseth is. And that is clearly the deployment of the polygraph inside the Pentagon. I think it's amazing that we know about this. What do you see in this reporting?
I mean, first of all, yeah, it's exceedingly rare. I mean, I don't think I know people that were like polygraphed as a routine matter of business, maybe like deep, CIA operative candidates, that kind of thing. Look, I think what we can take from this is, first of all, Nicole, not exactly a surprise that Pete Hegseth is a volatile personality with some personal disciplinary issues and kind of sense of paranoia. I mean, this was all on lots of display in his confirmation hearing and all the reporting around it. So we shouldn't be surprised a few months in that it turns out that Pete Hegseth is an unusual personality type to be running a huge bureaucracy like the Pentagon. And that should concern people, right? Because if this guy is coming to work and paranoid about leaks and paranoid about loyalty tests and directing polygraphs, he's not exactly overseeing a $1 trillion budget and all the various crises that may emerge in the Pentagon. What's going to happen when we're in a real national security crisis? And Pete Hegseth is more worried about whether somebody at the table has been polygraphed or not. So there are real world concerns that people should have about this. The only other thing I'd say is, based on your question, we're learning about this. My sense in Trump stories like this is there's usually like an iceberg underneath the thing we're learning. So if one guy is being polygraphed, I'm just guessing, I don't know this, but I would imagine that there's lots of other kind of polygraphs happening. And look, what it does is it kind of destroys trust among the team that you are building, right? And, we're only 6 months into this thing. Some of those people will leave and they'll be unhappy. Some of those people, I don't know if they're polygraphing the FBI, the same people that are being kind of polygraphed and hectored for loyalty might be the people who are asked to do things that are uncomfortable for them, whether it's around the Epstein files at DOJ or something at the Pentagon. And so what this tells me is he's kind of losing the people around him with this kind of insane focus on loyalty, and that the questions about his temperament and fitness for that job were asked for very good reasons.
Yeah, I mean, Michael Feinberg is the FBI agent who was denied a promotion and basically run out of the FBI, and a threat of a polygraph was part of his purging from the FBI. So the other agency that we know the polygraph is being used outside of its typical narrow, rare deployment inside the U.S. government is the FBI, also run by personalities who fall into a lot of the same descriptions that Ben just offered for Hegseth. But this is almost like the Epstein story, where these are not, I mean, they wanted to polygraph some of the remaining experienced generals. This is also in the Post report. Tests had been threatened by Hegseth against others, including 2 top military officers, Navy Admiral Christopher Grady, the vice chair of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, and Army Lieutenant General Doug Sims, the director of the Joint Staff. Those threats were first reported by the Wall Street Journal. But this is about a threat for a political at the Pentagon who went to the White House and asked for an intervention. To Ben's point about tip of the iceberg, it suggests that the treatment of the careers is far worse, and there's only a story or an intervention when MAGA ensnares another MAGA figure?
Yes, I agree with that. That makes sense. Will you allow me to be more? Will you allow me to be more superficial in my analysis than either you or Ben has been?
You guys have been way too substantive for Monday.
I swear. I mean, I admire the substance. Ben's a very substantive guy. I read this story and thought that there's a bunch of people in the White House who are after Pete Hegseth. They're like they want Pete Hegseth's scalp.
Too.
That's what I read in this thing. I thought, Pete Hegseth has managed to engender a lot of hostility in Trump world, because the one thing we've seen in Trump 2.0, unlike in Trump 1.0, it's been not a very leaky shop. There's not been like the crazy leaks that were constant in the first 4 years of Trump. When this thing becomes public in this way, I'm thinking Pete Hegseth's days are numbered, because some of Donald Trump's allies want him gone.
Yeah, I mean, it does bring you back to, I mean, you'd have to turn your ringer off, because the calls came from the West Wing so fast and furiously of this one leaking about that one. I mean, yeah, and the turnover of all the chiefs of staff. It is a news cycle a little bit reminiscent of that. We'll see if it holds.